This is October 14th, 2020. It's our Board of Commissioners work session. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and to listen to the discussion, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. And so we're going to start with about 5 minutes of just kind of check in with the commissioners. Who would like to go first? Okay, I will choose Commissioner Nebeker.
Hello, everyone. Let's see. Well, I went for a walk this morning, as I often do, and noticed there was a shorebird in distress. So took it to, my son and I took it to the aquarium. And what we learned is there's a lot of these birds now showing up that are emaciated and in distress. Evidently, there isn't enough food for them, or there's some kind of unfortunate situation. So if you happen to be along the beaches and you see them, they'll be taking care of them. What they do, well, we took it to the Seaside Aquarium because then they transfer it to the wildlife refuge and they get them back on their feet. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nebeker. Commissioner Thompson, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. So the Community Action Team passed its annual budget, and we're looking at being more interactive among the tri-counties. The idea for the coordinated care and the CBDB Community Development Block Grant programs are similar in that they talk about the whole community environment and how to deal with underlying causes in a coordinated way with other stakeholders. So I think that dovetails nicely into what we're doing with our strategic planning in Clatsop County, our interactions with our other stakeholders and partners around the state. That's all very positive news, I think. There was a community meeting this morning with Arch Cape residents. I see several of the same faces on there. That's positive. The Southwest Citizen Advisory Committee meeting was also earlier today. What we're doing is looking comprehensively at the circumstances and the conditions and everything that impacts us, and how do we do it in a way that is collaborative and coordinated and most effective and the best value for taxpayers. So that's really what I'm up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Aquila? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have anything to report. It's just good to see everybody.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Webb? I see you are on, Commissioner Webb, but I don't see your video. Are you able to speak now, or I won't say forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, I will say that I'm awful glad to see the rains come. It seems like it's been a long time since we've had the kind of drenching rain we've had in the last couple days. We actually have to hang your clothes up afterwards to dry. So it's nice to see the rains, and I hope they make it over to the fires. Commissioner Webb, we'll try one more time. Okay, let's move on to discuss the formal agenda. Does anyone have a question about the agenda or any comments about the agenda? Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were a couple of items that are fairly big ticket on the consent agenda, and I thought maybe I don't know if there's a way to move expeditiously through the agenda and still give information about the content or the amount of I'm still interested in efficiency, but communication. So I'm still thinking about that with a couple of the agenda items that are changes in the way we're doing business. So maybe we'll talk about that when we have a more far-reaching work session, because I think that's part of governance that you're working on. I appreciated getting your report on governance. So I'll just let it go for now. We've got a big agenda. Let's just move through it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's approve that as that is then. I hear no other concerns. The next thing, if I may add something to the beginning of this work session agenda, because if Dr. McMichael could wait, I asked Tracy, our election clerk, to speak today, and she wasn't expecting it, and I'm thinking that if we get her out of the way, that she might feel more comfortable with that. Then, if that's okay with you, Tracy.
Yes, it's fine with me.
And so what I've asked Tracy to do, as you know, we have a big election coming up, and the elections office has been busy. And Tracy, can you just kind of check in with us? And I know we have some new items that you might want to talk about.
Yes, we did. So yes, voter pamphlets, everybody should have them. If you don't, you can find them on the website, a state site, or, we have extras here in the office. Also, I've spent most of my day going and opening all of our new 24-hour drop boxes. So they are at Cannon Beach City Hall, Gerhardt City Hall, Seaside City Hall, Warrenton City Hall, the Napa High School, and the Jewel School. And everybody's been very receptive at having the box outside of their offices. They're really excited to help. And we put up some signs for them so they can point them away from their door. So they're excited. Registration deadline was yesterday. However, if you were registered and you just need to update an address or a mailing address, you still can do that through Election Day. And ballots, I already said this, went out today, which will help with our phone calls because people want to know where their ballots are. And you should have them by beginning of next week.
And Tracy, the ballots will have posted return postage on them. Tracy, the ballots will have return postage on them, correct?
Yes, postage is paid.
So they
However,
can mail them right now, or yep.
Yeah, we recommend mail it right away, or at least by October 27th, or if you're going to be after the 27th of October, to take it to a drop box to guarantee that we receive it on time, because we pick that up regularly.
And how often do you pick up the drop boxes at this point?
Well, we will be picking up multiple times during the week.
Okay.
And then depending if it's necessary, I'm available on the weekends to alleviate any troubleshooting.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tracy. And I would like you to come back at our next meeting at the end of the month. I just think it's
End
important.
Of November?
And, don't we have one after this before November? 28th or whatever it is. I don't have a calendar in front of me. So yeah, that next one before the big election. And then of course we'll have you back afterwards. And,
okay.
So thanks for coming in today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for all your work you're doing. And now let's move on to the public health update. Dr. McMichael. Dr. McMichael, are you available?
Chair Sullivan, members of the board, since Mike, are you there? Okay, go ahead.
I am. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. Can't seem to figure out how to unmute myself. Anyway, thanks. This is Mike McMichael, Clatsop County Public Health Director. As of right now, we have 231 cases in Clatsop County. Of those, 221 have recovered. We're still monitoring 10 cases, and we've had a very few cases this week, so we're feeling very fortunate. We, luckily, on another good topic, we actually did receive 1,000 Binax Now tests today in the mail, which means that we'll be able to do the rapid test starting tomorrow. And we're actually got a press release out to let people know that we're going to be expanding the test. And we're thinking that maybe because the results are going to be immediate within 15 minutes of when you get the test, that there'll be more demand than there has been recently. So we're pretty excited about that. Also, another update is that our ongoing work with Pacific Seafood, we have another concern at the Bio-Warrenton plant, and we are working on an agreement with them to do the testing either Thursday or Friday with a bunch of their staff. So that's all I have from the COVID front. To let you know, I also want to let you know that at the end of the season for Household Hazardous Waste, that at the end of our last event this past Saturday, we've collected 122,727 pounds of hazardous waste, which is approximately 61 tons. That's a substantial amount of material that was prevented from going into our regular waste stream or being improperly disposed. So that's a big win for us in Clatsop County, and I'm willing to take any questions if you have any.
Dr. McMichael, I'm wondering if you have any comments about the flu season.
Yeah, so flu season is either here or is getting close. The flu vaccine is available. We recommend everyone should have the flu shots. We have them available at our department. They're also available at any pharmacy. And usually your insurance will cover them at no cost to you. We are planning on doing some outreach events and getting the flu vaccine out to some of the underrepresented populations, doing some flu clinics, working with Consejo Hispano, and actually maybe some of the seafood processors have asked us to join with them, especially Bornstein's, to get their staff vaccinated. So we're pretty excited about that outreach.
And so now is the time to go out and get a flu shot. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now is as good a time as ever.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from Dr. McMichael? Commissioner Nebaker.
First of all, I did get my flu shot. I wondered, these rapid tests, I'm assuming that they're more reliable than the earlier ones that were rapid tests. Is that right?
Yeah, we've read up on these, and the Binax Now tests have about a 98 to 99% accuracy rate, which is far higher than the ones we've had in the past.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
Okay.
how will people, how will they go about getting them in case somebody asks me?
Sure. So all they have to do is give us a call. We're going to have clinics still on Mondays and Wednesdays through our drive-through clinic at the Health and Hazardous Waste Facility. All they have to do is call and schedule an appointment, and there is no cost to these tests. So we're really trying to push out the fact that people should get tested.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
We should have told the
Sound
sound
like a
effects
dolphin
person
or
to
something.
stand down. I want some big applause somewhere. Okay. Is that it for Dr. McMichael? Okay, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Now let's move on to the Columbia Pacific CCO report. We have about 15 minutes for this. And Brooke Stanley will be our presenter. So is everyone able to see that on their screen? She's sharing the screen now.
All right, can you hear me and can you see the presentation?
Could you make it a little bit larger for those of us with bad eyesight, or is it?
You know, I have it full screen on my screen, so that's all I know how to do.
Okay, then it's me. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, thanks for having us tonight, Commissioners. I'm Brooke Stanley, the Community Health Improvement Coordinator for Columbia Pacific CCO here in Clatsop County. and we were asked to come give an update on our regional health improvement plan. And so presenting with me tonight is, let me see if I can click through these slides, hopefully. Nancy Knopf, who will be talking about our COVID response. And then I'll be talking about our new regional health improvement plan dashboard, just at a really high level sneak peek. And then Angel Escobedo will take us on a deep dive into our trauma-informed care work. And I'll ask that you save questions for the end. We'll have 5 minutes at the end to discuss or ask questions. We can go back through any of the slides. So we want to make sure we have time for everything. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nancy to talk a little bit about how we responded when COVID-19 hit.
Hi, I just wanted to give a quick update to the commissioners and others around Columbia Pacific CCO and our work around, in partnership with public health, around response to our health plan members who test positive for COVID and need resources in order to stay home and recover, or to have additional spaces where they can quarantine and recover. We have a regional care team, care coordinators who worked with other community partners and healthcare providers to help our health plan members, and there are resources that we have set aside, nutrition and food access and other resources, social determinants of health resources to help people basically shelter in place. So just wanted to update on that's still in place as things continue. And here, I love to hear about the flu shot and the things that are happening around the community regarding flu shots, and we at Columbia Pacific encourage everyone to do that as well. And our health plan members can go to any pharmacy, and adults can go to pharmacy to get a free shot, public health, or to their healthcare providers. And then just quickly, we did give emergency funding to a number of community-based organizations, also our clinical partners, but community-based organizations to support their response to COVID and loss of income from fundraising and staff being out, and the need to quickly build up resources to help their community members. So that's it. I'm going to go to the next slide, Brooke.
Thanks, Nancy. And so you all remember our regional health improvement plan. That's the document on the left, and on the right you see the 8 priority areas. We also call our regional health improvement plan the RHIP. And so we have this new RHIP dashboard that we've created, which is meant to be shared out with our partners like yourselves and other community members who want to keep track of how we're actually moving forward on this work. And so what we've done is we've created 2 indicators for each of our 8 priority areas. And that has, so you can see the 8 priority areas here. Each of them has a little box. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. If someone needs to mute. Okay, thanks. And then, so each of these areas has 2 indicators to kind of track how that work is moving forward. There are actually dashboards for each of the 3 counties we work in, as well as this overall regional dashboard. These are live with data right now, but they will be up on our website hopefully by the end of this month, and then we're hoping that public health would like to share it on their website as well. In order to pick these indicators, it was pretty tough, I'll say. A lot of these are really huge buckets of work, and they're in social determinants of health where it's not necessarily really number driven. And so as you dig in, there are indicator descriptions that you can click into, and it looks sort of like this to show you what some of the more background information on how we pick those indicators, what they mean. And I'm happy to answer questions about that later. But Without getting too much further into that, I just wanted to let you know it's up. We're excited about it. We've been working on it for a long time, and we're excited to share it out. And I will send it up to all of you in email as soon as it's on the internet. But now I'd like to hand it over to Angel Escobedo to talk about our Trauma-Informed Care Network.
Good afternoon. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Angel Escobedo. Thank you for your interest in learning more about the important and exciting community resilience and trauma-informed work happening in Clatsop County through the Resilient Clatsop County Network. I'm here to give you an update on our progress, including what we've learned, our work to date, and our plans for the future. As you know, community resilience and trauma-informed care is one of the strategic priority areas of the Regional Health Improvement Plan, which has already been adopted by your Public Health Department. So we're on the next slide. Perfect, thank you. In recent years, we've learned a lot more about the tremendous impact of unaddressed adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs for short, on future health and well-being. Studies show that the higher the adverse childhood experience score, ACE score, the higher the risk of health and social problems. In fact, as the number of ACEs increases, so does the risk of disease, social, and emotional problems. With an ACE score of 4 or more, the rate of serious outcomes increases significantly. Higher number of ACEs are also more likely to be reported by marginalized populations, especially populations that identify as Black, multiracial, lower income, or with less than a high school education. Next slide, Brooke. The good news, and there is good news, is that research shows that when caregivers provide physically and emotionally safe environments for children and teach them how to be resilient, the negative effects of ACEs can be reduced. Our brains are plastic. Our bodies want to heal. Next. Oh, actually, no, let's stay in that slide. So we've also learned that increased community and institutional support utilizing trauma-informed approaches can build resiliency and help children and adults overcome childhood trauma to lead happy and productive lives. In Clatsop County, conversations about childhood trauma, ACEs, and the challenges that children and their parents face inspired the creation of the Resilient Clatsop County Network to provide a coordinated trauma-informed response and provide tools to respond to and prevent childhood trauma across sectors and systems in Clatsop County. The folks that were leading these efforts reached out to Columbia Pacific for additional support. Columbia Pacific responded to this request by hiring me in December 2018. My role is to support leaders in Clatsop County, lead the network, facilitate the process of getting the network up and running, and serve as the initial backbone, with the endpoint being to embed the network into the community so that folks take it on themselves and my role becomes unnecessary and the network becomes self-sustaining. So what are the networks, or what is the network? The network brings together providers and organizations from critical sectors in the community to improve health and life outcomes for children, families, and communities across Clatsop County by addressing childhood trauma and building resilience in children and families. The targeted sectors include education, healthcare, child welfare, criminal justice, business, and the community. through the network, systems come together to coordinate and improve trauma-informed and resilience building strategies and promote the adoption and expansion of trauma-informed care across sectors and services. The network is led by a steering committee made up of local leaders. The goal of this initiative is to increase resilience and well-being of children and families. Next slide, Brooke. So over the last 2 years, 21 organizations have officially joined the network. In your slide, it says 20, but I added another one. So there's a total of 21. Members include school districts, healthcare providers, local government entities, and nonprofits. We are continuously growing and are currently in the process of inviting additional organizations. To join the network, we ask organizations to sign a letter of commitment. Next slide, please. So I'd like to share a few highlights of what we've been working on. We developed a timeline to design and launch the network, and in December 2019, we developed a 5-year strategic plan as part of building our shared agenda. While COVID-19 delayed some of our plans, member organizations have been utilizing the network as a space for virtual coordination, learning, and to work on shared projects to reduce childhood trauma. We hope to formally launch the network in late 2020 or early 2021. Next slide, please. So in front of you, you have an organogram that depicts the infrastructure of the network. So the infrastructure is made up of a steering committee and 6 sector work groups. The first line of boxes is the steering committee. The steering committee is made up of decision makers who can influence change in their organization with functional expertise from the target sectors. There are 6 sector work groups with additional participants working in each sector, and that's the second line of boxes. Those are the sector work groups. And I'm the senior program development specialist, and I provide the backbone support, and I'm the box towards the end there. Organizations are asked to commit to implementing trauma-informed care practices throughout their organizations and sectors, and be fully supportive of cross-sector integration efforts. The vision is to build upon the great trauma-informed and resilience work already happening in Clatsop County. The goal is to partner with these systems and to develop a coordinated approach across sectors so that we're working together and supporting each other towards a common goal. We believe that by linking systems together with a common agenda, we can have an even greater impact in the effort to prevent and heal childhood trauma and its harmful consequences, and build resilience in children and their families. Next slide, Brooke. So now that we have a strategic plan, we will potentially be presenting to the Columbia Pacific Board of Directors investment proposals for implementation of the strategies identified in the plan, and looking for ways to leverage outside funding opportunities as we implement our strategic plan and continue growing the network. But before I conclude my remarks, I'd like to formally invite Clatsop County to join the Resilient Clatsop County Network. This would involve signing a letter of commitment, which I'm happy to share with you. It's a 1-page document. Would you be willing to learn more about this commitment?
Well, I would.
Absolutely.
Great.
What do I hear? So what would
can
be
you?
next? You could send that to us and we could take a look at it?
Yes, I would send it to you. Who do I send it to at the county?
You can send it to me, the chair, Commissioner Sullivan, and you
Okay.
can also send it to, well, you're probably already working with Dr. I can pass it on.
Okay, I'll send it to you. That concludes my remarks. Thank you for allowing me to share this update and the exciting work that is underway in Clatsop County. I'm also happy to meet with anyone one-on-one if you're interested in learning more, and I look forward to sending that note and answering any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
That concludes our presentation, so we can take questions.
Commissioner Nebaker?
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. And I do have a few questions and comments. I'm really grateful that ACEs has become part of our common language now in talking about mental health and public health. I'm curious about, I know the original study done in, I think, 1995 to 1997 of 17,000 people, it was not the population that you referred to now. And so I'm wondering why it's being focused on primarily the population that you mentioned instead of a broader population. I know that was a long time ago, but most of those people were not from those groups. And most of them were fairly well educated. So I'm wondering what the change was. So that's my first question, if you have an answer.
Yeah. So my point was only that that it's more likely for marginalized populations to report higher ACEs or rates of ACEs. The study you said, that's correct, was primarily women, middle class, educated, insured folks. But what we found later in subsequent studies were that marginalized groups or folks that identify as Black or lower income or less than a high school education had higher rates of ACEs. So the research has shown, the subsequent research has shown that this affects everyone, but in some cases it disproportionately affects other groups at a higher rate. And that's all I was saying.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that answer, clarification. I'm really glad that housing has become part of this. That's so important. And my last question is, of the, let's see, I forget what you called them, the network members, why is not Providence, I see CMH is on there, why is Providence not on there?
Providence is, and they just recently came on board like a day or two ago before I submitted the presentation. So they are a member and they're on board.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the questions.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, isn't this just the best stuff? It's very exciting to think about these complex, adaptive, interactive systems. I was glad to see that you considered the business leaders, because my background's in social work. As a county caseworker 53 years ago in Lansing, Michigan, starting out. And what occurred to me then was that people needed jobs that gave their lives meaning and purpose and provided adequate and stable income. So I've remained interested in all of the mental health and physical health considerations, but it seemed to me that one of the most important factors for every dimension whether it's housing or healthcare or any of it, is an opportunity structure for people to be self-supporting. Do you share that point of view? Is that how you look at things, or do you have a different point of view?
That systems are, that a collective efforts are self-sustaining.
Well, and that people need jobs in order to
Yes.
be able to have.
Yes.
It doesn't good to have a house if you can't afford to pay for it, or an apartment. Okay.
No, yes,
Okay.
there are, one of the strategies in the plan is looking at supports for families. You know, for example, during COVID-19, this pandemic, you know, a lot of families are at risk because, you know, they either have lost a job, or they don't have childcare, or their children are at home and they're frontline workers and they need to work. You know, there's a lot of stressors, and that puts families at risk for abuse, for all of these other ACEs. And so yes, some of those basic necessities, and I'm putting that in air quotes, if they're not in place, are stressors for families, and destabilize families.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you, because I think you're on the right track. I think you're doing the right things with the right people, and the members of the governing body, I'm pretty sure, are interested in collaborating with you and partnering with you and doing everything we can together to address these issues.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Good.
I appreciate your leadership and support.
Angel, this is Commissioner Sullivan, and I don't know if you have an answer, but I imagine it's part of this. Is we are going to be doing a proclamation at our main meeting on intimate partner violence, and as I was looking for more information about that, one of the things that I saw was there seems to be limited research on that and how it affects and whatnot. Does an organization like your organization, are they keeping track of that? And I mean, it's based on trauma informed care. So could you tell, do you have anything that you could say about that?
Well, I don't have the indicators in front of me, but there are a set of indicators, proposed indicators, that we would be, as a network, be collecting. But some of those indicators could potentially be intimate partner violence. If I remember correctly, maybe there is an indicator or two related to that, so that we're measuring those situations, so that we can see if we're making a real dent in trauma in our community. So yes, I think there are some indicators in place, and that certainly is a factor that plays that affects families, and creates trauma for not only the victim, but also if children are involved, if they witness it, or even if they're not around, but the parent being affected affects children as well. And so we are looking at that within the broader strategy, and hopefully looking to measure some of that as well.
Okay, because I think that's important. If we're not paying attention, we don't know if it's getting better, if it's getting worse. So, and I imagine, it sounds like from what I've seen, what you've said, that you're also in line for this COVID, it's revealed gaps in care, that you're looking at that too, what's been exposed now with the pandemic and what direction we need to go in.
Yeah, I mean, overnight, children, you know, school is a stable force in children's life, especially maybe children, and all children, but particularly for children who maybe rely on those nurturing relationships, that may be the only source of nurturing relationships. And that overnight was pulled from right underneath children's feet. And then there was questions, you know, this whole summer about whether it was going to be in person or not. And so that's affected children as well. And so, there's a lot to look at and unpackage because there's a lot of layers to this.
Well, I'm impressed with your presentation, and please do send us that. And I'm sure that we all will be happy to look at that and see what we need to do going forward to help you out. Do you have any concluding comments you'd like to make?
No, I think that's it for me. I look forward to sending that and collaborating and working together to build an even more resilient Clatsop County together.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you and your team for your presentation. It was very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks.
Thank you.
All right, we have 3 things left on the agenda, but the jail relocation project, we are going to set that aside for another work session. And so let's go to the Fair Board appointment. Who's going to give us the staff report on that?
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is John. We had one of our Fair Board members resign just a little bit early this year. And so we ran an ad for 30 days, and we got 2 applicants, Mary Olson and Matthew Bellingham. And the Fair Board and the staff are recommending at this time that Matthew Bellingham be appointed to the Fair Board.
Okay, well, I appreciated reading the applications for those candidates. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, ma'am. So John, personally, I wanted to have a bigger board so you could appoint both of them because they both seemed extraordinarily well qualified and devoted and all that sort of thing. But tell me the gender makeup of the Fair Board, please.
We have, well, currently as it sits, we have 2 male, 2 female.
So you're balanced in that regard.
Yeah, with 4. Once we bring one on, then we'll be out of balance one direction or the other.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Anybody else have a question? Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewis. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's now go on to the legislative consultant contract. Who is going to give the staff report on that?
That would be me, Commissioner. So as you all know, we have the 2021 legislative session coming upon us. And they are anticipating, according to Rob Bovett on Monday, approximately 4,000 bills coming through. So it's going to be a crazy session, much like the last session. And so staff has gone through the RFP process. And when we first went out, we did not receive any RFP responses back. But in follow-up, we did reach out to PAC West, and Paul Phillips of PAC West responded to us, and he provided kind of an overview of their services. And Dawn had sent that out previously, and then it's also included on page, I think it's 134 in the agenda packet as well. Just to kind of give you an overview of the services that they provide. And if you'd like, I have Paul here to answer any questions, but otherwise we'll be bringing this before you on the consent calendar this evening, so that way we can get busy and sign the contract tomorrow and bring him on board so that he can start meeting with staff and board members.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think it's a dandy idea to have all of the response capacity possible during these times. I think it's important to continue to act with AOC and the other regional entities with which we interact. I'd be interested in hearing from Mr. Phillips indulge me a little. Tell me what you think you can do for us in concise terms, please.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for the question. We currently represent Umatilla, Deschutes, and Douglas counties, and we've worked with county and city governments all over the state of Oregon. I've been involved in every legislative session since 1977, 14 years as a legislator, 5 years on the governor's staff of Vicatia, and now as a lobbyist. I've assembled a team that represents folks from the coast that have been very active in a variety of different ways. I think if you look at the issues facing the county and the approximate 4,000 bills, we can be your eyes and ears and your legs and arms. We believe that it is best to have commissioners actually make the presentation when it's finally in front of committees. But staffing you, getting you briefed up, knowing what the issues are, working with Don and Monica and any other your agency directors so that we can get, whether it's tax assessment. On the team I've proposed for you, I've got a guy that's worked for me for over 12 years and is really a seasoned lobbyist, so works a lot on transportation and construction. But I've got a woman whose mother was a legislator from Coos Bay for a long time. She's worked in the Capitol 13 years, very involved in coastal issues. A fellow like myself that's very active on the Ways and Means Committee. So I don't think it's necessarily just policy issues, it's finance issues that we'll be having to track for you guys. And working with your local legislators is critical, but it's really, we are your front-facing view, but you've got to, we're going to establish a way to make sure you're out in front at the appropriate time.
I think that was pretty much a perfect answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Aquila?
Well, I think this is such a significant step and a great move in amplifying our voice in Salem. And certainly I think that this isn't about pushing for good bills. This is really stopping bad bills and what they can do and the impact they can have on us. So I'm pleased to see this moving forward.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea also. I wish that you had been here earlier because I am ending my tenure at the end of the year. So I think political work is very important, and I think it'll help the county to have another set of eyes or more on the issues that we care about. So thank you. So did anyone else have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Phillips.
Oh, you bet. Looking forward to working with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, Don, did you want to say anything about the jail relocation project that just briefly that we're going to be putting that in another work session?
Sure. So as you know, staff has been working hard for a period of time dealing with a really complex project. And we had scheduled a work session today, but there's still some outstanding issues that staff is working on. So we have a meeting tomorrow with the sheriff and a larger team. And so we will come back soon, but we just like to have a little bit more time.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else before we, Pam, did you want to check Commissioner Webb, did you want to check your mic? Or we can do that offline. Okay, so this work session is now adjourned. You can just turn off your video and be back here at 6 for the start of our regular meeting. Okay, thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone to the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners, October 14th, 2020 board meeting. I am Commissioner Kathleen Sullivan and I serve as chair. Today, the Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board, is now meeting in regular session. Clerk of the board, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Nebeker,
Here.
Commissioner Quila,
Here.
Commissioner Webb,
Here.
Commissioner Thompson,
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here. Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Commissioner Thompson moves to approve the agenda, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Nebeker seconds it. So we have a motion to approve and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the agenda has been approved unanimously. And we are going now to, we are going to have a proclamation tonight about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I have added something onto this agenda, just to let you know. We are going to have the harbor. I don't know if that's separate from the staff report. So we're going to we have a staff report. We have staff from the harbor also, and we have Dawn Buzzard from the DA's office. And then I think we'll go to the, let's take that away. Don, I would like to do the reports and then come back. I think that makes sense to me. And then come back to the staff report if that's okay.
Yeah, the staff, I mean, Commissioner Sullivan, staff doesn't really have a report. I would just, if you're comfortable, just have the harbor start presentation. So.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was thinking. Emily, would you like to start and introduce yourself and your colleague?
Hi, my name is Emily Spalding. I'm the DHS co-located advocate at the harbor.
And my name is Jordan. I'm an advocate and the event coordinator at the harbor.
Wonderful.
Emily, this is Teresa. I sent you an invite to share your screen. You said you had a PowerPoint.
Yes, I do.
How are you doing with that, Emily?
Oh, there we go.
Is it? It's
up?
Oh,
there we go. Look at that. Perfect. Excellent. Go ahead.
Okay. So the harbor, our physical office is on Commercial Street. We work with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. Our mission is to provide advocacy, support, self-determination, and hope to the survivors. And we also want to work to foster a community with all of our partners and community members that works together to break the cycle of domestic violence and sexual assault. And so the prevalence of domestic violence is really high. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men will experience some form of physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. In Oregon, the rates of intimate partner violence are higher than the national average. The harbor last year took 1,419 crisis calls. We also worked with 619 survivors of domestic or family violence, and an additional 232 survivors of sexual assault or stalking. And so this means that it's pretty likely that all of us, our lives are in some way affected by domestic violence.
So the definition of domestic violence is a pattern of power and control used by one person over another. And I think a lot of times the second part is what people focus on, but it's really the first one, which I think is so much more important to talk about. Focus on the physical, sexual, or psychological harm or threat of harm that happens, but a lot of times that's just a tactic that is used as part of this larger pattern of power and control. And this is kind of what we see a lot of times. This is kind of the standard model for domestic violence awareness. This is called the power and control wheel. And you can see here on the outside it says violence, physical, sexual. On the inside it says power and control. We think of each of these little sections within this wheel as spokes to the wheels. And so you can see these are different tactics here that abusers commonly use. Things like using intimidation, threatening people if they're going to leave them, for instance, usually using emotional abuse, reducing someone's sense of self-worth, which allows them to be continued to have power over them, using isolation, keeping people from their family or friends so that they're forced to rely on an abuser for their social network, minimizing, denying, and blaming the problem, using children. This is a common one. You know, if you leave me, I'll have the kid still. Using male privilege, sometimes being believed more. Using economic abuse. This is a huge one. So much of my job as an advocate is just helping people find the money to leave a situation. And this manifests itself in many ways, keeping someone from working or making someone work all the time so that they can support the abuser, and using coercion. These are all the tactics that we see here a lot of the time. And these are warning signs you can look for in your own personal relationship. A lot of times we get clients who don't think they're in an abusive situation because they've never been punched before. People think of that, but there are many warning signs of abusive relationships. In your relationship, insulting, demeaning, shaming, showing extreme jealousy, that's a really big one. A lot of times tied to delusions too. Being prevented from spending time with family or friends, that's that isolating from people. Controlling finances, having a partner having complete control over the money or dictating specifically what you can or can't spend on. Pressure or forcing sex. Intimidating with actions, words, weapons, violence, and threatens or enacts harm. And in someone else's relationship, unexplained injuries, isolation, frequently canceling plans, frequent absences from school or work, increase in fear or anxiety, manipulation or controlling behavior, pushing boundaries, on edge or acts different when the partner's around, and frequent put downs or name calling.
We've seen an increase in domestic violence since COVID has occurred. Prior to the pandemic, we were receiving between 100 and 125 crisis calls a month. Currently, we're receiving around 200. We've also seen a significant increase in the severity of the violence. We look at lethality factors when kind of assessing what a survivor needs in terms of like emergency housing and getting out of a situation, things like having a weapon and physical violence and like escalation of behaviors. We've definitely seen a pretty big increase in that. Since the start of the pandemic. We've also seen an increase in the complexity of the survivors' needs since the pandemic. This just looks like survivors are needing to access a lot more resources and being connected with a lot more services. Part of this is, like Jordan was explaining, abusers are having more control over finances. Survivors are already isolated, things like that. So just the complexity of what survivors are needing has really been increasing. And along the same lines, there's an increased need for resources, but we have the same or fewer resources available, specifically housing resources. We have a lot of survivors who are trying to get out of abusive situations, and even when we have funding resources available, there really just aren't houses or apartments for these survivors to go to, even if they have funds. So that's been a big barrier that has been coming up. Some of the services that we offer are emergency shelter. We also have a 24-hour crisis line that's staffed by advocates. We do 24-hour crisis response for domestic violence or sexual assault calls from law enforcement or hospitals. This looks different now because of COVID. We are not responding in person, but we will still take those calls. We do individual case management with clients. This is things like referring them to partner agencies, filling out housing applications, working with them on applications for programs that will give them financial assistance. We help them with legal referrals and assistance with restraining orders, help with relocation efforts and financial assistance, safety planning, as well as counseling and support groups. And we work a lot with community partners. There is a lot of collaboration between our advocates and folks that work at other agencies. We work with the law enforcement and the court system. We work with the hospitals and places like Classic Behavioral Health Care, as well as a lot of other counseling providers in the area. We work with DHS a lot with the Self-Sufficiency Office and Child Welfare. DHS has some grants for DV survivors, and they work with our survivors as well, just on working towards their goals with funding and housing and taking care of their children and things like that. We teach a prevention curriculum in local schools, and we also do a lot of outreach and education at Tongue Point. Other organizations that we work with a lot are Clatsop Community Action and Helping Hands. There are also just a lot more agencies and individuals in the community that work with us and our survivors a lot. And then also you guys, just community members in general, are really great allies for our survivors as well. There's a lot of things individuals can do to help a survivor. The first being just believing what they say. It takes a lot for a survivor to come forward in an abusive situation, and you may be the first person they've told, or you may be the first person you've told that is going to believe them. So assuring them that you do actually believe what they say can be really powerful. And then also not judging the survivor. Sometimes it's hard for people to understand things that the survivor has done. For example, staying in an abusive relationship, sometimes people have a hard time understanding that. But it's important to recognize that survivors make the best decision that they can in a given moment, and they do what they need to survive. And so making sure that we're not passing on judgment to the survivor for those decisions. And also letting the survivor make their own decisions. A lot of domestic violence and abuse, as we had said earlier, is about power and control, and their power and control has been taken away in the abuse. And so we want to make sure that we're not continuing to take away their power by trying to force the decisions that we want to make on them. So again, when we think about, like, we really want them to leave the abusive situation, it can be sometimes more harmful to try to push that belief on them rather than to empower them to just make what they believe is best for them in that moment. And then keeping their confidence. This means that whatever they tell you, trying to keep it to yourself. Sometimes by telling other people what the survivor has told you, the abuse can become worse. If the abuser finds out that they're talking to people, the violence can escalate. And again, it also takes away some of the survivor's power and autonomy over their story. Discussing safety with the survivor, letting them know that their safety is important to you, and letting them know that there are resources to help them safety plan and that you are a safe person. And then reminding them that the abuse is not their fault. That is a tactic that abusers use a lot, telling them that the survivor's behavior or their actions is what's causing the abuse. And so it's important to remind the survivor that nobody chooses abuse, and that the abuser's behavior is 100% the choice of the abuser. And then lastly, providing them resources, letting them know that if and when they want to access resources, you will help them do that, letting them know what sorts of resources are available in the area. We are one resource in our community for survivors that they can reach out to. So mostly just being there for survivors, listening and believing them, and empowering them to make choices that feel safe and good for them.
So it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month right now, which is part of the reason why we're here. And we've got a couple different promotions going on right now with our organization. The first and main one that we're doing is Purple Light Night. You might notice this if you're in downtown Astoria. We've been going to pretty much all the businesses downtown and getting them to take these purple light bulbs as well as these flyers that you can see in this little picture here, put them in their window. And essentially what we're trying to do is just show people that every building that has a purple light is another business that cares about domestic violence awareness and also is here for survivors of domestic violence. And with this, we gave out flyers with a lot of the same information we just talked to you about how to support victims of domestic violence or survivors of domestic violence. And so our hope is here that we're just creating a culture of more help, more resources, and more immediate support. Another thing we're doing with this is on October 22nd, we're gonna celebrate Wear Purple Day. We're all gonna wear purple. I think I'm gonna have to resort to burgundy because I don't know if I have any proper purple. But we would love it if a bunch of people in our community did this as well. And we're gonna try to spread the word about this more as well. Another thing that we did in our organization is we recorded a bunch of public service announcements that we're hoping to air on the radio stations around here. These aren't specifically for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, as related as they are, so I'm hoping that they just air and can continue to air after October is over. And these just are written from the perspective of interviews with people whose relationships seem kind of normal at first, but then you realize as the interview goes on that there is a problem here with power and control. And the idea behind these is just that I think a lot of times when we imagine a domestic abuser, we imagine someone who's angry all the time and punching people all the time and, doing something like that. But in reality, it could be a much more subtle problem that we don't notice as much when we're not the ones in the relationship. So these are really just trying to expand our view of what domestic violence could look like. And then finally, just having more conversations with people with what this looks like. And speaking of conversation, I think we're also going to appear on the Conversation with Graham on KMUN in the 3rd or 4th week of October. So look for that as well. And if you want to contact us, our website is harbornorthwest.org. You can check that out. And we've got lots of great information on there. You can also email us here, info@harbornorthwest.org, HarborNW, sorry. We have the office phone, 503-325-3426. We have people in the office from 9 to 5 every day, advocates who are super helpful to talk to. I'm just consistently blown away. I'm newer at this organization, and just how positive and accepting the culture is here is just so incredible. It's unlike any place I've ever worked. And I think that really carries over to the services we provide too. If you have any questions, feel free to call the office phone or the crisis phone, which is essentially our overnight version. I know it says crisis, but we've had some discussions about that word for this because sometimes people don't feel like they're in crisis, but still have questions about whether or not a relationship in their life is healthy or not. So if you do have any services, our crisis phone is open 24/7 and we welcome calls. And just more personally, my email is here at the bottom, jordan@harbornw.org. I'm always available. Reach out, say hello, ask me the most benign question you have. I am so willing to talk about this, so please do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jordan and Emily. I really appreciate you doing this. I appreciate the work that you do, and it's very, very important. If you could hold on for just a moment, we're going to have Dawn Buzzard from the DA's office say something, and then if we have any questions, then we'll get back at both of you, okay? So Dawn, if you could start.
Yes, hi, I'm Dawn Buzzard. I'm Chief Deputy DA here in Clatsop County. I've been a prosecutor in Clatsop County for about, I think about 19 years. And ever since I started here, I've been working with the Harbor, which used to be the Women's Resource Center. We have a really good relationship. Before COVID, we used to chair the DV Council for Clatsop County. Every county is supposed to have one. And we would do things like walks and runs, just a lot of public information things, as well as work on the batterers intervention programs. It's kind of like the other part of trying to work with this problem. I feel just really grateful that we do have such a great program here in Clatsop County. I've gone to a lot of national conferences where, just like Jordan was saying, just relationship is not as great with law enforcement, but here in Clatsop County, it's been really good. And I thought I would just, happy to answer any questions, but I thought I'd just tell you just a quick story. One of the most, just a lot of the advocates have been amazing, and a lot of the trials I do are heartbreaking. They're, you know, it takes so many internal like strength to go through with it. And a lot of times it's the advocate from the harbor that ends up, you know, coming to grand jury with them or coming and sitting through them with at a trial. And I have this pretty brutal domestic violence, rape and sodomy case. And an advocate came and sat with my victim throughout the whole trial. But during day 3, I looked over and she was actually talking to somebody else who I didn't recognize. So I asked her who that was. Well, it was the adult daughter of the defendant, who was also a sex abuse victim of his. And this advocate, this woman, this other victim that I didn't even know about, came just because she saw her dad's name and just kind of wanted to know what's going on. And I was so grateful to the advocate from the harbor who just assumed that role to do what she could to help this woman who was in crisis in the middle of a trial. I was so impressed, and I was still am grateful to this day because, besides being, pretty well trained and having this good relationship, there's just, I think, amazing people who work there. So I'm really grateful for the relationship we have. And I hope after COVID ends or peters out that we can go back to having domestic violence council meetings and all the good things that we were, the walks and the demonstrations that we were having before. But that's all. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say thank you, Dawn. Thank you for coming and representing the DA's office and law enforcement. This is a societal problem, and it's a problem that we need to continue working on all fronts. And I like the idea of having the purple lights in the businesses because every member of our society needs to help with these kind of societal problems. So thank you very much. We do have a proclamation to read, but before we do that, do we have any comments from the commissioners? Okay, so thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you coming in and speaking, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you. So today, the proclamation is, I'll read this. It's from the Board of Commissioners, Clatsop County, in the matter of proclaiming October 20th as Domestic Violence Month, Awareness Month, whereas the first Domestic Violence Month was observed in October 1987, the same year that saw the initiation of the first national domestic violence toll-free hotline. And in 1989, Congress designated October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas domestic violence is a pattern of assaultive and corrosive, I'm not saying that word, behaviors, including physical, psychological, sexual, and economic abuse, social isolation, and stalking that are used to maintain power and control over a person's intimate partner. And whereas the right of domestic violence violates an individual's dignity, safety, and basic human rights, and whereas domestic violence is the single largest cause of injury and homicide for women. And whereas children exposed to domestic violence experience terror, isolation, guilt, helplessness, and grief, and have a higher risk of engaging in criminal behavior and substance abuse and becoming victims of crime. And whereas domestic violence is the single largest cause of injury and homicide for women, whereas domestic violence impacts the health and well-being of our community, and whereas it is incumbent on every citizen to play a role in preventing and ending domestic violence. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Clatsop County proclaim October 2020 to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month, dated this 14th day of October 2020. So thank you. And all of that will go in the minutes. And Emily, if you can share, maybe this is already the case, you can share your slide presentation. We'll put that in the minutes also. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Excellent job. Thank you all. Okay, so let's go down to business from the public. The business from the public, this is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. So we have a number of people that have sent in emails, and we are going to do our best to get through those. Clerk of the board, are there any written comments that were sent in from the public?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
No, there were not.
Okay. So if my understanding is that we will have the clerk of the board, Teresa, and our assistant county manager, Monica Steele. They were going to be reading 2 minutes of each of the emails. We have a number of them. So if we want to get started on that, we can do that. Do you need any help with timekeeping?
I think we have it.
Okay.
The first letter. Dear Commissioners, I cannot approve the resiliency project. Living on South Wahana for 41 years, the amount of traffic has surged. Locals already use Wahana Road as an alternate route. When the new school opens up and the parents getting their kids to school and people getting to work, along with the hospital changing shifts, will be an overload. There is now a 40-home development going in across the street, and just getting out of my driveway will be a real challenge. And in the big truck traffic you are trying to move around the county, you've just created another mess. I truly believe there are much better ways to spend taxpayer money that would benefit them, especially in these times. I ask you to reconsider this plan. Sincerely, Cindy Olson.
To the Clatsop County Commissioners, I'm a landowner adjacent to the Lewis and Clark main line that is proposed route for the Public Works project. The main line actually runs through my property, as does Lewis and Clark Road. My husband and I purchased this property as a safe location to ride and pasture our horses and as an investment for our children's future. We have spent many hours riding the logging roads with friends and family. We are not able to do this at our former home on Highway 26 due to the inappropriate speed and behavior of drivers. We had just purchased this property when 2 of our horses got out onto Highway 26 and one of them was hit, snapping her leg off at the knee. We moved them here as soon as we could get the property fenced. When we first moved from here, we were able to ride the horses on Lewis and Clark as few people drove through here, mostly logging trucks and local residents. We were unaware that the county planned to improve the road until we were told by Sasha Reichel. Once the road improvement started, so did our problems. Most cars driving off the road through our fences into our fields where our horses were. We were never informed by police when and if they responded that our fences were damaged. I worked for the sheriff's office at the time. When we would ride, a few motorists thought it was funny to honk and spook the horses and to drive so close to us it was dangerous. My neighbor who lived below our south corner said a car had come around the corner on 2 wheels while she was watching from her living room, frightening her. Their house was below the road line. She said they expected to have a car come in their bedroom some night. I have a natural ravine which is dry in the summer, but when it rains in the winter, carries flooding waters from the properties up above and the main line. It used to cause minimal flooding in the winter, but after they upgraded Lewis and Clark, putting it in improved drain pipes, my lowest land is almost always flooded, making it unusable. It will be worse if they pave the main line. My husband would not ride on Lewis and Clark after its improvement, so we stuck mainly to the logging roads. Our property is perfectly situated for this, as we have a small logging road that goes up to the power line, and we use that easement to access the main line. We kept the path clear along the easement. Once on the logging roads, we had access to wherever we wanted to go. We shared the road with logging company trucks, bicycle riders, hunters, military personnel, and pedestrians walking their dogs, all of us in relative safety. It's part of the value of our property. It's access to recreation. About 4 to 5 months ago.
Thank you. Okay, this letter to the Board of Commissioners. As a Clatsop County resident and taxpayer, I feel compelled to strongly disagree with current plans set forth in the Resiliency Project. Firstly, it is economically outrageous to both purchase and maintain new properties for the Public Works building when the county already owns more suitable and better situated property at the business park that is going unused. This gross misuse of public funds is inexcusable in any times, but particularly shameful in our present circumstances with much more pressing and dire needs glaringly going unmet. Our county is taking huge hits to the tourist economy, as well as hits from diminished exportation of logs to China and sales of fuel. We have a growing homeless problem, a childcare crisis, spiraling unemployment, and families having increasing difficulty paying for medical needs, food, and housing. We do not need to hear that our tax dollars are buying 51 acres, much of it in the inundation zone, and a road that is now being maintained by the Wall Street Corporation, who owns it and who will not only make millions of dollars from the sale to Clatsop County, but will also be free to continue to use the road for their logging operations, while the taxpayers of this county pick up all expenses of maintaining it. Which brings me to the second objection. Mainline is built upon land that is subject to liquefaction in the event of an earthquake or tsunami. I asked the commissioners in a previous remote meeting if they intended to have geological testing done during the winter, since our rainy climate means that any such emergency event would be 75% likely to happen during the wet seasons. The fumbling answer that I got was that they hadn't thought they needed geologic testing because the road is up at the top, but maybe they could check into it. Later, my entire question in the answer was edited out of the record.
I, Pat O'Grady, cannot support the move of the Clatsop County Public Works building. I have looked over the facility several times and find it to be great repair facility. The excuse of a tsunami or Cascadia event is a poor excuse. There is roughly 8 people that work at the shop, and all of them do not want to move and relocate, as the shops are very functional and orderly. I have looked over the area several times myself and find it would be great to work out of. Furthermore, the county does not have the proper equipment in the case of a tsunami or a Cascadia event. The best the county could do is sublet the work out to a private company that has the equipment. The county has the property out in Spencer for storing heavy equipment and fuel, also out in Jewel at the county shops there. To relocate Public Works building and purchase the old Crown Zellerback main line is not a good use of the taxpayer money. The main line is in good shape and at this time for an evacuation and if ever needed. The gates can be opened very quickly. Please use some common sense when thinking of even doing this project. Please get in contact with me if you have any questions. Pat O'Grady.
Okay, I apologize. That last letter I wrote was from Marilyn Parday. This letter is from Beebe Ashcroft and Michael Jason Merrill. I would like to express some concerns about the Public Works Resiliency Project, as I don't feel that the survey, which was mailed out to residents, covered all of the issues raised by this project. While I am in full support of moving important infrastructure out of the tsunami zone in a manner that protects our wetlands, I have concerns with this specific proposal. I live on Wahana Road, and expanding the road as proposed would either eliminate or significantly reduce the shoulder of the road, making it even more hazardous to pedestrians and further limiting parking. I'm not sure where my friends and family would be able to park when visiting my home, as my driveway is only large enough to fit my own vehicles. The expansion would also presumably require the removal of one of my trees and encroach on my neighbor's properties as well. One home near me is so close to the road already that the proposed expansion would necessitate knocking down a portion of their house. Furthermore, I'm concerned that this expansion will further increase the already heavy traffic on this road. I have lived on Wahana since 1993, so I remember when it was still a quiet dirt road. After it was paved, the traffic quickly increased to the nonstop amount that we have now, and I would presume that if it is expanded, that will only continue to increase. Something that has concerned me for years is the fact that Wahana attracts those who like to illegally race their cars at night and speed down the road at 80 to 90 miles per hour. There is a school bus stop directly across the street from me and many pedestrians that have to walk on this road daily. So I already worry about one of those speeding cars hitting a child. And if the shoulder is reduced or removed, this will be even more hazardous. When I moved here as a child, my parents did not own a car, so I know what it is like to have no option but to walk down the road. A great number of my friends and neighbors have similar concerns, so it's absolutely vital that the county listens to the community on this issue and provides ample space and time for taxpayers to be heard on the project they are funding.
That was Beebe Ashcroft and Michael Jason Merrill. Dear board members, we are writing in support of the concern friends for Clatsop County over plans for relocation of the Public Works facility and possible acquisition of the Main Line Road. While important to move the Public Works facility to a safe location, the Lewis and Clark sorting yard falls short of being viable and better alternatives exist. In the event of a major cascade event, the sorting yard facility would be inaccessible from Astoria. A better choice lies in the North Coast Business Park. Despite some wetland mitigation which would be required, the land is already owned by the county, lies outside the tsunami inundation zone, centrally located, is close to the ODOT first responder team, state police, sheriff, and medic. The acquisition of Mainline Road would be of limited value. If left as is, though unimproved, it would provide 7 miles of access in case of a disaster. An investment of more than $20 million to improve the road would add no additional safety to disaster response. With respect to the goals of the 2011 House Resolution 3, the Oregon Resilience Plan, Clatsop County money would be better spent to fund easement and upgrades to properties which could serve as lateral foot routes to the east off of Highway 101, putting provisions in the hills off Highway 101 for survival. 3, develop signage for these routes. 4, educate citizens about what is needed for improved survival. 5, retrofit county bridges to withstand a cascade event. 6, upgrade county communications and warning systems. We look forward to a more viable approach to disaster preparation and resilience from the County Commission. Sincerely yours, Robert L. Holland, MD, PhD, and Camille M. Holland, MS.
Clatsop County Commission. In my opinion, publishing the resiliency project timeline without any publishing the costs associated with this project is devious and a bit less than ethical. How can taxpayers decide if there are benefits or harms with this project without all the information? It would have been honest if question 1, do you support moving the Public Works facility out of the tsunami inundation zone, had the cost of $10 million in the question? It would have been honest if question 2, do you think the Lewis and Clark sorting yard would be an appropriate location, had the cost of $900,000 in the question? I would suggest that some introspection is required to decide if the commission is serving the needs of the taxpaying public or serving the needs of those interests who will benefit from this project. Matthew Pardes.
This is from Betsy Lang. I'm writing this as I feel the resiliency project is going in the wrong direction. Moving Public Works to the sorting yard and taking over the main line is not a good idea. The first issue I'm having trouble with is that it appears things have been in the works for a long time. Not notifying all the landowners would be affected by this is a bit underhanded. Another issue is this project is being called a resiliency project that will allow people to escape due to a disaster. If this is truly a resiliency project, the main line would be able to stay as is, namely gated and closed to public access. The gates can be opened when needed, such as if there is a tsunami. Log trucks have been using the main line for decades, so it obviously can handle large vehicles as is. Let's be real here. What you are proposing sounds more like a bypass, not an escape route due to a disaster. Whatever you want to call it, it should not happen at the expense of a community. I don't know how many of you have actually been on the main line lately. There are many houses, some with horses, some recently built specifically there because of this quiet, close-knit community. Opening up the main line to public access will prevent the activities that make our community so special. All landowners along the main line will be affected, some possibly losing their homes. I agree that moving Public Works out of the tsunami zone is a good idea, but it should be moved into an urbanized area such as the North Coast Business Park. This area is centrally located outside the tsunami zone. The infrastructure is there and it won't create such an upheaval as it would be if it's placed in a quiet rural zone. On top of that, the county already owns it. Astoria is a historical area. Moving Public Works to the sorting yard will have a ripple effect, which is detriment to what makes Astoria so special.
Dear Board of Commissioners, the Resiliency Project calls for relocating the county's public works facility and establishing alternative routes for emergency evacuation and delivery of vital services. This project will be expensive and does not appear to address establishing alternate routes for emergency evacuation. Emergency evacuation routes should include lateral routes from inundation zones to higher ground. The plan should also include updating and replacing bridges to withstand a catastrophic event. Spending money to improve the main line, phase 2 to 100 wide county road when bridges and access to this portion of roadway during an event will most likely be non-existent. This section of roadway is also subject to landslide according to the county overlay maps. Disturbing this land to widen it to 100 could make it more susceptible to landslide. Improving the main line, opening it to the public, spending taxpayer money does not make sense when there are roads on either side of it. The goal of the proposed relocation is to move the public works facility out of the inundation zone in which it is currently situated. Moving the facility to the North Coast Business Park is out of the inundation zone, properly zoned, meets acreage requirements. The county could self-mitigate the property and has the utilities available, including sewer, city, water, and high-speed internet. The Warrenton Fiber Nygaard site's previous tenant left the site because of contamination issues. The property is not zoned properly, is surrounded by flood and landslide zones, making access to the site during an event questionable. Sewer, city, water, high-speed internet is not readily available in the area. Respectfully, Jack and Anna Borges, concerned citizens.
Dear Clatsop County Commission, County Manager Don Boone, and Public Works Director, I'm writing to you as a concerned county citizen, property owner, and taxpayer who would be directly impacted by your planned resiliency project. I live along the Lewis and Clark main line near the intersection of Wadsworth Road and Lewis and Clark Road, right where the south and north sections of the main line meet. I feel there is too much uncertainty and unanswered questions surrounding the true purpose for this project. I understand aspects of this project have been topics of discussion for many years, and to choose now while the community is under the effect of restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic to push this project forward just smacks of impropriety. Public in-person meetings need to be held rather than Zoom meetings that not all can access to truly inform everyone affected. This is looking to be an extremely expensive undertaking. The old sort yard is not the best option. The North Coast Business Park makes much more sense for that purpose. In the case of an emergency from a catastrophic event or any other reason, the access to the main line is already there. Open the gates and go. Why spend millions on enlarging and paving the main line when such improvements would likely be destroyed in the event of an earthquake? Unless it's not really about just moving the county shop. It seems likely that the area is being prepared for future development that would destroy the peace and tranquility of the area. I feel the money would be better spent creating escape routes from the west to east and educating the citizenry on how to survive a catastrophic event. Please be good stewards of the land and of the taxpayers' money and use the property you already own for the county shops. Respectfully, Sally Hurt.
Dear Commissioners, we are living in sad times right now, and to add to this, our quiet country surroundings are in jeopardy of becoming a racetrack with the road project that has been proposed to us country folk. The project is unnecessary, and the taxpayers having to put out for this project is disturbing. I ask that you think about how you would feel if your safe, quiet surroundings were in jeopardy of becoming a loud traffic area. Sandy Dustin.
Dear Clatsop County Commissioners, County Manager Don Boone, and Public Works Director, I am writing to you today about my many concerns with the Clatsop County Public Works Resiliency Project Plan. This is the most multifaceted project I have ever seen Clatsop County try to take on with the least amount of pertinent information available to the taxpayers of the county, and especially those that pay into Road District Number 1. The way this has been handled leaves most Clatsop County residents in a thick fog of what this is really about. Is it about moving the Clatsop County Public Works? Is it about saving lives in a disaster or tsunami? Is it really about a bypass? Is it really about a way to open up our precious rural farm and forest land to development? Is it about spending the taxpayers' hard-earned money without asking them if they want all of this? So what is it? We deserve to know more before any more decisions are made or property bought. We deserve cost analysis on all of this. We deserve transparency. We deserve to know why you want to move Public Works out of the tsunami inundation zone to the sorting yard site, which is also in a partial inundation slide zone. The attached GIS map. We deserve to know why you would spend the taxpayers' money to buy, pave, and maintain roads that will not be able to help to evacuate citizens from the low-lying areas. We deserve to know why the members of the commission seemingly have not visited the sites being considered, have not received cost estimates, have not received corresponding maps that would help them see the holes in this plan. We deserve to know why our county commissioner for District 3, Pam Webb, thinks it's a good idea to buy said properties and then figure out the costs associated with building and infrastructure after the fact. Common sense would tell you to come up with a cost ahead of time. This sounds like a black hole to me. I could go on, as I have probably put in over 80+ hours in research lately on this project and listened to numerous Clatsop County meetings. In closing, I feel the County Commission and the Public Works Department should take a step back from this before going down this money pit. Yes, I'm for saving lives in an emergency, but this project as planned is not going to be of much help. Respectfully, Diane Berry.
Mr. Ted McLean and Clatsop County Commissioners, regarding your resiliency project. This responds to your August 19th correspondence regarding the resiliency project questionnaire. The information provided, the lack of information offered, and the format of your questionnaire are so insufficient that an intelligent and helpful resource is not possible. Process is the handmaiden of substance. Without due process, there can be no substantive result. While we try to keep informed of local government activities, your letter was our first introduction to your resiliency project. Only by researching material on the county's website, including the 2015 Clatsop County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan and the material posted on the Public Works site, do we have a limited sense of your planned policy. We assume many county residents face the same dilemma since the correspondence failed to provide the necessary factual information to permit a requested conclusion to be reached. Without a historical detail for the purposes and parameters of your planning, the alternative options evaluated and apparently dismissed, and how your plan relates to general county policies such as the hazard mitigation plan, it is not possible to provide our opinion on your project. Your cover letter details you are seeking to relocate the Public Works facility out of the tsunami inundation zone, and as part of that process, considering the selection additional of travel routes. Yet you do not detail the several sites evaluated and for which competed phase 1 ESAs were completed, leaving us with the inability to provide an opinion based upon a differential diagnosis. You assert the purchase of the sorting yard is 51 acres by the ESA dealt with only 8.09 acres. Why are the extra 43 acres necessary? Can you or are you able to separate the two parcels for purchase? If not, what is the plan for the 43 acres? And this letter is signed by Louise Fisher and Richard Fisher.
To the Clatsop County Commissioners, I oppose your plan to move the road department to the old sorting yard site. You already own a piece of land near the ODOT site that would serve you well. As far as your resiliency road, I've talked with a civil engineer who builds roads for a living, and he agreed with me that leaving the main line in its current condition would be easier and much faster to get it back into a road that can move essential supplies and equipment. The definition of resilient is marked by the ability to recover readily. The engineer said that during an earthquake the size that is predicted, an 8-inch roadbed of blacktop would likely be broken up into slabs, with their ends having elevation differences that would not be passable with vehicles. The whole roadbed would have to be pulverized before attempting to blade it back to a passable roadbed. A rock face could quickly be bladed back to a relatively flat surface. Todd Olson.
Recently, my husband and I have purchased the property at 34761 Lucas Lane. Our property sits alongside of the sorting yard, the one in which you wish to purchase for the county shops. I am also very concerned with the mainline plans that involve my neighbors and friends. Let me first say that your survey was very deceiving to many. You gave no explanations as to what your plans, discoveries, surveys, if any, costs, other options, impact on the small community, now and in the future, and lifestyle. You just sent out a very confusing yes or no, very vague survey, kind of like your vague virtual meeting. What I got out of that meeting was that there was no transparency, and when someone didn't have an answer, the buck was passed. It was pathetic. With that being said, I feel that numbers, costs, already purchased property that would be a better fit for the evacuations and new county buildings that are predicted, monies that would be needed to go forward with this project would lend more validity to your cause. You have failed miserably to even produce such information, nor have you produced valid costs to the taxpayers. What I see is developments being built out this way, big box stores. I have heard over and over again, Hillsborough. Really? Is this what we want for our beautiful community? If I had known that you were looking to purchase next door, I would have never bought my parents' house. We have planned to keep it in the family, as does the man who purchased my parents' land across the street. The land that the county was interested in purchasing and had stated they were only going to put one building on it, as it is zoned for agriculture and forestry only. Ted had also stated that he was interested in the home I purchased for his personal use. I do not believe that, nor did I at the time. I do not understand why there is no transparency. You truly have no consideration for the community or way of life out here. I feel by your survey that you depended on the votes of people that live outside this community. Kate Gordon.
I am in strong opposition to the county's proposed resiliency plan for the Public Works Department and road acquisition. I believe in resiliency, but I also believe in community-based solutions. Unfortunately, the resiliency plan that has been presented during the August Zoom meeting, the September mail survey, and October work session has not incorporated community input, considered landscape resiliency, nor has it addressed survivability of a Cascadia event. As a landowner and farmer in the Lewis and Clark Valley, I was blindsided by this project. When this project was brought to my attention, it was after survey crews had already been working in the neighborhood. It was after my neighbors reached out to the county in an attempt to understand why survey crews were on private property. It was brought to public attention months after the pandemic had irrevocably changed family dynamics across the globe, caused waves of unemployment and acute stress for those navigating various resources to make ends meet, and while parents throughout the county have been scrambling to accommodate closed daycare facilities and prepare for distance learning. I have been fortunate enough to find time to become informed about the current resiliency plan and also the history of the often renamed project. I would argue that most families have not had the time to focus on yet another life-altering change that is veiled in technical language, vague survey questions, and emotional, evoking language that promises safety. Most families have not had the time to spend hours researching the hard-to-navigate history of the project or attend the public Zoom meetings held in the middle of a weekday workday. For rural residents, it is even more difficult due to bandwidth requirements and phone services need to attend said public meetings. The project has been brought to public attention but has failed to address community concerns, consider compromises suggested by community members, or consider the acute ongoing stress for residents during this pandemic. The plan also fails to consider landscape resiliency, acquisition and development of the mainline roads, development described as Ensign Lane with 6-foot multi-use paths, and introduce additional public driving into the area. Increased public driving access would increase vagrancy, vandalism, property damage, theft, traffic incidents, trash dumping, negative interactions between the public and livestock, wildlife, and other foreseeable consequences to the Lewis and Clark community. Increased human and vehicle presence in a rural area also further decreases water quality within the Lewis and Clark watershed and increases our chance of catastrophic wildfire. Lewis and Clark River has been identified as one. Oh,
thank you.
That was written by Wendy Eaglebaugh.
Dear board members, I am writing in support of the concerned Friends for Clatsop County with regards to the resiliency project and its plans to relocate the county's public works facility and purchase of the main line to establish an alternative route for emergency evacuation. I will touch upon two obvious reasons as to not go forth with the resiliency project. We have lived on our property for 20 years, which is located on either side of the main line. It is quiet here with the wildfire abundant and thriving. By proposing to purchase the main line and making it an open access road will affect the peacefulness and safety we now offer those animals. More and more habitat has been taken away in Clatsop County and guaranteed urban growth will follow suit. As a taxpayer, I'm already taxed a lot of money. There is no need to spend millions of dollars on a project that has other options that would cost much less money. For example, why purchase the Warrenton Fiber Nygaard site, which is contaminated, not zoned correctly, and is surrounded by flood and landslide zones when you already own, is paid for, the North Coast Business Park? It seems it would cost taxpayers a lot less money if you built on land you already own and is accessible if there was a need for delivery of vital services in case of emergency. I am in hopes that you the board will look very thoroughly at the resiliency project and what effects, there are many, it truly does not offer our community. Michelle Osborne.
I've been watching county meetings and reading information on the proposed resiliency project. I disagree with the direction the county is taking this project, and here's why. The county is focusing on the wrong things. A north to south escape for a tsunami is far less important than a west to east. Escaping from Highway 101 between Warrenton and Seaside would be the priority. Gravel roads exist and should be used for this purpose, along with the approved signage and some slight improvements to clear possible obstacles. For an escape route, there is no need to improve a road to asphalt. It's an escape route for emergencies, not a highway. The county already owns property at the North Coast Business Park. Why would the county waste money on the sorting yard in Lewis and Clark? It isn't any better a location. It may cost some money for dealing with environmental issues, but so far I haven't heard anything saying that would be more expensive than purchasing a whole new property. What is the cost difference? Not only that, the North Coast Business Park doesn't impact any local property owners like the sorting yard does. Improving the main line on either end, north or south, is a waste of money. There is already the Lewis and Clark Highway, yet at the cost of possibly tens of millions of dollars, the county wants to improve the main line to county road standards. It does not make sense. The main line can already be used as an escape route as it is with little improvement needed. Remember, it's an escape route for emergencies. I have not spoken to a single Lewis and Clark resident who wants this project to happen at the sorting yard. Not one resident has a desire to have a highway running through their yards if the proposed improvement to the main line is improved. And how many county residents realize just how much the combined project will cost them? To say we use federal money is laughable at best. What project is fully funded? It will always cost the residents something. We already pay too much in property taxes. It's the property owners that suffer the most for these little projects. Pamela Webb needs to rethink her priorities. She already destroyed Hillsboro's farming community. Her personal agenda is affecting people who have lived here for most, if not all, of their lives. What right does she have to come here and tell us what we need? She is supposed to represent her constituents. Her comments at the last meeting were eye-opening. She obviously does not care about the residents' feelings on this land and said so herself. Does she pay any property taxes in this county? The biggest beneficiaries of this whole project will be those selling the property the county wishes to buy, and those who will eventually push to have Lewis and Clark area rezoned so they can have lots of money for housing projects. I see this as the end goal for the pushing of this agenda because nothing else makes sense. Sincerely, Evan Q.
Thank you, Monica. We have reached the 30-minute mark. I appreciate you and Teresa reading those emails today. I appreciate the folks that wrote in, and we will continue on with our meeting. So thank you very much. Okay, now on to, do we have a motion for the consent calendar, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Thompson, adoption of the items on the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Naviker, you had your hand up, right? Did you want to second that, or did you have another question? Was that a second?
I will second it, but I did have something I wanted to say. I'll hold off and say it later.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the consent calendar as it is, and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent calendar is approved, and I want to thank the staff that have been here waiting. I appreciate that. So let's now move on to the commissioners' liaison reports. And Commissioner Naviker, would you like to start?
Yeah, before I give my liaison report, and I have to pull it up here, I appreciate hearing from the public, but I have to say that some of those comments were disrespectful, and I don't think that, I don't know if it's because it's in the form of letters. I don't know if it's because of the times that we are in now, but I think some of those comments were not appropriate and were disrespectful. I want to hear from people, and I think that I can hear what they have to say much better when they are more considerate of their language and also of their criticisms. I understand they feel passionate. I get that. But there's a way to communicate, especially with public officials, that I think is, and public staff, that is far more effective when you speak with, whether it's in letter or in person, when you speak with respect. And that's what I wanted to say about that. Okay. And I did read every one of those letters beforehand. So I read them twice. I heard them twice. I want people to know that in case they are listening. Okay, so I attended the Public Safety Coordinating Council, and this is my report. The courthouse is being used more by homeless and other people coming in, so they have improved their video surveillance around the courthouse. There have been, now I'm not sure if the sheriff is at our meeting. I can't see, but I think he reported there have been 335 felonies and 94 misdemeanors. And I'm not sure what the time period is for that. If anybody knows, let me know. Also, he said that there's new software, jail management, new software for their jail management system that they are installing. He sounded pretty positive about that. And new hires of deputy and Sheriff Phillips. Maybe you all know this. I didn't until he reported this, that he went to Lane County to help with the fires, which I think was wonderful. 700 houses were lost and thousands out of their homes, and he went to help coordinate. AT&T brought in a generator, but unfortunately it was stolen. And there was some looting that took place, especially sad when so many people are already hurting. He also addressed ballot measure 4-205 regarding gun laws, and that it would present problems for law enforcement if it passes, and that it could possibly be unconstitutional. And I believe he said that Curry, Harney, and Grant counties found it so. The jail construction was going over budget, so some reworking with construction workers is happening. And right now, I guess the planned completion date is January of 2022. A navigation center with office hours and spaces, employment information, place to get ID, therapies, veterans services, etc., was discussed as possible for a navigation intercept. And this concept is part of the social services component in the strategic plan. The harbor received a large grant to do prevention work in the county. Starting with Napa, proposal is a 10-week curriculum covering dating and sexual assault. Support groups are starting up again virtually and in person. Beginning in January, Yamhill County Detention Center will be used for juvenile detention. Yamhill, previously we've been using Cowlitz County. We have an increase, unfortunately, in juvenile detentions. 2 are Measure 11 crimes. 1 is an arrest for possible murder, and 2 are challenging youths needing court. Lincoln County received a homeless runaway grant, and this may help the North Coast as well with detention needs. A lot of people are hurting at this time. Unfortunately, partly due to COVID, the court processing is delayed, and this is very unfortunate because, in my opinion, justice delayed is justice denied. The Beacon Clubhouse for people who struggle with mental health is engaging people who are on the margins of society, and they work with others. They help each other. They help each other with support, getting housing. CBH is assisting. Helping them get out of their homes and socializing is a big purpose for the Beacon Clubhouse. And you may have seen at the Astoria Co-op an opportunity to contribute. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nebaker. Commissioner Quayla, would you like to go next?
Yes, I will. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is a report from the Fair Board meeting last week. The fairgrounds took in 6 families from the fires, and they received $1,500 in reimbursements from Senator Betsy Johnson's office. They finished painting the dairy barn out there. Looks amazing. It's rustic red with white trim. They're moving forward on spending $10,000 allotted for advertising for the fairgrounds as a venue to help bring in tourism. So they're currently running an ad for the next 3 months in Oregon Business Magazine, and they're placing brochures in over 250 brochure stands in the Portland metro area for the next year. And those are both about $5,000 a piece for both of those efforts. They're working hard to bring the fairgrounds up to date with all the touchless faucets and toilet fixtures to help help the spread of COVID and future germ spreading. And they're still having small functions out there and being utilized by many nonprofit organizations. And one thing kind of similar to what Sheriff Phillips has been doing, I know Chair Mike Audio went down to Southern Oregon as well. I don't know if he's back yet, but he's been fighting fires down there for the last week or week and a half. So it's just really heartening to see the people in our community that care so much about this state, that they're willing to go and help out wherever possible. So I just want to say thanks to Chair Audio as well. That's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Quayla. Commissioner Thompson, would you like to go next?
Sure thing. My day started out listening to neighbors in Arch Cape and Falcon Cove Beach talk about neighborhood livability. And now, after several other meetings during the day, we're back at the same issue. How do we have livability? Neighbor to neighbor, community-wide, county-wide, national, and all over the world. And so being good neighbors is a conversation that the county council and I had yesterday. How do we tease out the real issue? And one simplistic kind of way to look at it is, how do we be good neighbors? So I appreciate, as Commissioner Nebaker said, we really want to hear what people have to say. I was kind of laughing last meeting when I said, oh, I'm delighted. Well, I'm really interested in people. I really want to hear what they have to say. It's hard to stay interested when the language is critical or insulting. So that's just being good neighbors. As Commissioner Quayla said, in Clatsop County, we really want to take care of ourselves and each other. And so I'm delighted that we're having a conversation about resilience, because we're dealing with change. And these are bigger changes than we can manage when we look at global climate change. So we've got more wildfires. I mean, there are some of us who go to bed at night and kind of fuss about, are we going to have an earthquake and a tsunami tonight? I mean, things can happen to us that we have no control over. What we can control is the way we interact with each other. So your county commissioners, your county staff, your neighbors, all of us, we just need to be together in this in ways that are constructive and helpful, because I promise you, it's not our intention to fill these roles in a way that causes anybody harm. Everybody I know wants to hold office or have a job or be a neighbor or be a family member or be a friend, so we can do good and be good together. So if we can focus on that and deal with the stresses and the challenges and the heartbreaking sacrifices. I had another close friend die last night. Life is short. Let's be kind to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I'm sorry for your loss. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I really appreciate the support of my fellow commissioners for respect and civil dialogue. One of the reasons I ran for county commission is because in the previous commissions, in the 6 years that I've been here, I was always very struck by how uncivil actions were. And in the year and 10 months that I have been on the commission, it has been such a pleasure that there has never been animosity. There has never been, we get along so well. Our new county manager has been a blessing to us in allowing us to have work sessions where we discuss things very thoroughly and get hopefully smart about things. And I just would like to thank my fellow commissioners for having made for me this year and 10 months a really very wonderful public service experience for me. So now let's say kudos to a few wonderful things that happened in the last few weeks. The 30th forestry tour, which is something that happens every year by the Clatsop Forestry Economic Development Council, of which I am a proud member, happened this year in spite of the pandemic. They put together a virtual tour that I think is worth sending to Netflix. It was just terrific. They did videos. They basically took a video tour of what we would ordinarily climb in and out of buses to view. And it was, I hope that all of you, because I know you were all invited, I hope you all attended and agree with me that it was just terrific. And it's the kind of thing that we're going to be able, since now we have a video, because I always say that I wish we could get every junior high school, middle school and high school student in Clatsop County into the forest and into our wood products industries to see how incredible the jobs are, how safe they are compared to forestry jobs in the past, and how well they pay. So we have one now. We've got this great video, and I'm just so pleased. It was extremely well attended, and we got wonderful, wonderful comments about it. The situation at the Northwest Housing Authority continues to evolve. We have an interim executive director now, and we are trying to make sure that the daily services that our clients who are both in supported housing but also seeking supported housing, that they're met, and I think we're doing that. I'm really, really pleased at how well that is going. I had the opportunity this week or so to go out to Big Creek to talk to a cooperative program that ODF&W and our Parks Department, our Parks Department, and remember that we're also, the director of our Parks Department also runs our fisheries program. And the North Coast Land Conservancy, the Watershed Alliance, the Clatsop County Watershed Alliance. We're in a program to address the issues that in Big Creek, which is a very important spawning ground for salmon, has now become a part of a program because over the years, Big Creek and Little Creek, it turns out, have changed their course. And in the process, we have lost a lot of good spawning habitat. And so now we have a program going, consultants hired, lots of folks being cooperative, where we're going to try to restore that habitat by redirecting the rivers back onto a more habitat positive direction. We have lots of landowners out there, and they've they've been mostly very cooperative in achieving this, and it's very exciting, I think, that we're part of this. And I love the comments that my fellow commissioners made about change. I think we are all about change in this world right now, and resiliency is something that that we all need to bear in mind as an issue that we should be teaching our children, and that change is coming. It is inevitable. It always has been. It's just happening right now at a much greater speed than it ever has before. And we must, I believe, support each other and raise the next generations in adaptation and in positive attitudes towards change. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. This is Commissioner Sullivan, and I just wanted to thank the commissioners for their comments tonight. I very much appreciate how supportive they are of the staff and of the commissioners, and also the acknowledgement that, as Commissioner Webb said, we are in a process of change, and we need to adapt to that change. And I think the Resiliency Project is still in process, and it's best to be. It's really important to listen and to really be kind as we go through this. So the big news on my front, on our front, is that the the Oregon Board of Forestry last Wednesday approved the Habitat Conservation Plan to go forward into the environmental impact study. And so this is still another year or two out of negotiations and whatnot, but I think it's a positive step that they're continuing with the process. And I wanted to thank the board, this board and the last board, for electing me to be the Forest Trust Land Advisory representative. I've been proud to serve and represent CLATSUP's policy of a balanced forest management plan, and that we believe that a complex forest is important, that forest has more than one value. Recreation, habitat, and revenue are very important for our community, and I just have been proud to represent CLATSUP on at the Board of Forestry, and also the Forest Trust Land Advisory Committee, and then recently it's been the Council of Forest Trust Lands. So thank you for that. And I am now serving on the North Coast Regional Equity and Recovery Council. It's in partnering with the Oregon Employment Department. We had a meeting today from 3:30 to 5. So it's been a long Wednesday for me, but it's I feel I'll do my best on that committee also. And other than that, I think I will conclude my comments today. So thank you. County Manager Don Boone, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, members of the board. Just on behalf of staff, I also want to recognize the board for your leadership for the organization, and your civility as board members towards each other, to staff. Governance, as you know, is an important topic for me, and I've been so gratified to be part of this organization under your leadership. And so I just want to thank all of you for that. I also just want to list a few things that staff is working on. And as I just mentioned some of these, it really does a disservice for the amount of resource that is going into these projects. But I think it's important because there's some major things happening. Some of them we discussed in work session. But these are all really, really important things, and they're not just important, we have to do them well. So things can be important, but these are important and we have to do them well. It's the elections, as we mentioned. It's tax season, so staff is busy dealing with taxes. We have the jail planning with the sheriff's office and our building and grounds folks in the county manager's office. We have strategic planning, which is, I'm still shaking my head that we're getting all this done during a pandemic, but staff, the board, and community members have been working hard to support our timeline, and there's been some really good work done. COVID-19 is a continual effort on behalf of the county. We start transitioning to different phases as we start talking about vaccines. But staff has been obviously doing yeoman's work in that arena. We have the legislative session coming up, and so that's going to be taking a lot of time and energy from the board and from staff also. We have the comprehensive planning process that's still ongoing under the leadership of our community development team. And then, of course, there's things like open enrollment, which impact all of our employees, that is taking place right now also. So a lot of great work. We're blessed with amazing staff and amazing board leadership. And so, we'll just continue to do the great work and to serve, and we'll just hope that we don't have any other surprises coming our way. So thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. I have a question. Do we have an executive session today?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. So let's go on down to the business agenda. And it is the Board of Property Tax Appeals appointment. This is on page 193 of your packet. And may we have the staff report, please?
Yes, Commissioners. This is an ongoing process that we do every year. We need to appoint a governing body and non-office holding members to the Board of Property Tax Appeals. We went out for advertisement beginning in July, concluding this September, and we have been fortunate enough to have our 3 members return again this year. So all it needs is your approval by the board, and we will notify them of their service. Any questions?
Commissioner Nebaker.
If we're ready, I would make a motion.
I have a question, Joanna, since I am on this list, should we have Commissioner Nebaker do this?
No, I mean, you're not receiving any financial benefit. I can't see of any conflict of interest, which would be the only reason that I would think that you'd want to decline from this. So.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioner Nebaker, you had a motion?
Yes. I move that the board appoint Kathleen Sullivan as the governing body member and appoint Greg Friedman and David Oser to the non-office holding pool of the Board of Property Tax Appeals for the year 2020 to 2021 year.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, I guess we should do, clerk of the board, could you read the roll, please?
Commissioner Nebaker?
Aye.
Commissioner Aquila?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. Okay, so the motion to appoint Kathleen Sullivan as the governing body member and appoint Greg Friedman and David Oser for the non-office holding pool of the Board of Property Tax Appeals for the 2020-2021 year has passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Is there anything for good of the order? Okay, so I believe what we do is we adjourn the meeting and then open back up as an executive session. Is that correct? Yes? Okay, the official Board of Commissioner meeting on October 14th, 2020 is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being